move back so they can't see my wrinkles.
Yeah, lean back, head forward, so I don't have the double chin. Oh wait, they can hear all this. Okay. How's my wife?
Are we waiting for anyone else?
No, I think this is it actually.
Well, it looks like I saw Lloyd on here. Lloyd's here. Or he was. He's muted maybe.
He's just listening, Rand.
And we might have a few other people popping in here and there.
Okay.
Especially if there's questions that I can't answer.
Okay, are we... yeah, they want more sound in the back.
Yeah, actually also, yeah, Rand, can you, is there any way for you guys to move closer to your mic at all? Because Ryan, you're very clear, but Rand and you guys are a little quiet.
Is that any better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try and in when we're talking.
Great. All volume good in the back now? Yes. Great. Okay, well, this is going to be the Q&A with Cyan, various people from Cyan. Cyanists, would you like to introduce yourselves? Ryan, introduce yourself.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rand.
Out of the way. I'm Rand, figurehead here at Cyan, and sometimes I work too. And known as Atris. That's all. That's all I got. Go ahead.
I'm Blake Bieka. I'm one of the 3D environment artists.
Blake's representing the art team today, although, yeah, all of it. He gets the credit for everything today. Unless Joe is always late. We can all be in on the joke when he shows up late.
I'm Ryan Warzeka, producer on Abduction, and some of the scientists couldn't make it. A lot of people are on vacation. In fact, it just showed up that it's that time of year. So, like, our art director's out, our a bunch of people are out, but everybody wanted to let you know that they're sad that they missed it, but they're happy to have the stream with you. So,
well, we'll get you the date a year in advance next time.
What? Wait, Anna's here. QA. Yay! Yay!
Hey! There was lots of yaying. You couldn't hear it.
We saw some hands go up there.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's kick this off with a group question. What games have influenced your game making the most?
Like, I'll start because it's easy, and they're old games. As I've said before, and I won't. Yeah, I'll just keep it short. Like, I think probably games like Zork. If I had to put a finger on one that influenced game making, it was those early text adventures because they felt like I was going to another place. Graphics to them, it might even be better. So, yeah. No, Blake, what games influenced you?
Way back when, I guess, Myst.
Or now? Oh, Myst.
Got me into the industry.
That's cheating.
Yeah. I mean, that's the truth, though. Like, even for me, it was Myst and Riven, and those kind of games got me into it. Of different types of games now, but yeah, it was those adventure games, adventure puzzle games. That's the.
Anna, what games you like? What made you get into this silly industry?
I liked adventure games, making quick adventures. Yeah. Good stuff.
Okay.
lurkers here on our side. Lloyd's coming in. Dog's coming in. Squeeze in. There's Lloyd. Lloyd, it says you're there.
I'm there, sir.
Yeah.
He's here, but he's there.
Grant, is there any way to get some of those other people on the screen, or can you move the monitor?
Yep, they're on the couch. They can go pull chairs to the wall.
Okay.
In fact, you know what? It's hot in here. I need to turn on the air conditioning.
A cell phone, there's no lever, there's no... Okay. Yeah.
I do that with my phone. We are high tech, living in the future.
Okay, next question. What is your favorite world, puzzle, or part of Abduction? And before we get any farther, there will be spoilers. Don't hold back. Everyone here knows it.
Okay. You sure?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody there kind of is expecting spoilers, right?
Yep.
If they aren't,
I
it's
think
too
so.
late now.
So I'll give you my favorite part. It's actually the beginning of the game. I love the subtleties of how players are drawn in there, and I think it's because we were able to put so much attention on that, especially at the beginning. But I love the fact that it's a linear path as you're coming in. There's not a lot of places to go. It feels very reassuring as a player. You're going down the canyon. You look around a little. The canyon is almost this both literal and figurative constraint that starts to broaden as the player goes further. And I think that's really cool because you get a little more freedom. And then all of a sudden there's the message that says, it gives you a goal. Just about the time that you have a choice of where you want to go, there's a message that says, oh, you should go to the house with the picket fence. Because that's where the psychology of, like, some people are rebels and they want to go their own way, but they can hold on to the fact that there's a small goal. There's this little house that I'm supposed to go to, and I can get there eventually. I love the way that works. By the way, there's not all perfect genius designs, some that you kind of stumble on. So, and then beyond that, I'll keep going because I love how it works. Get to the house eventually, whether you do it roundabout or not roundabout, and then inevitably you look around like, well, what do I do next? I'm not sure what to do. And off in the distance you see this glowing, this red line, laser, whatever, beam of energy, and it just works like a charm. Everybody's drawn to that specifically, and interestingly, if you decide to go over there first, we actually have an Arai that flies out of the things back over to the house to try and coax you to go to the house first, just in case. You still don't have to, but that's what that's for. When you go over toward the beam, you learn more about the place. You eventually get into that whole yard over there, and there's another Arai that flies off the top of CW's little hut, and that serves two purposes. One, to kind of draw your attention to his hut, like as a place to go, but also the Arai flies along the power lines to make sure you kind of see, oh wait, there's power lines here because you're about to get a message. Power lines. And I love the way that falls into place when CW tells you, okay, we've got to get the power on here. The fact is, if you step out and look, you're getting the power lines humming, you look at it, and it's like, oh, well, there's power lines. I should follow those. And we originally had those draping over to his as well, and it was too confusing. So we needed to make them stop there so that you can only follow them in one direction over toward the bridge, which then is the puzzle you've got to solve. Anyway, I think, in case you couldn't tell, how that all kind of falls into place so nicely, and I love the psychology of all that. So that's my favorite kind of stuff, Abduction. Although, obviously, I love it.
Lloyd, go.
Hey, it's Joe. That's Joe back there.
Hi, Joe.
Who else? Anyone else? Jump in.
I really missed some of the puzzles that we cut out. So there were things that were cut, and I know that you guys have questions on that later. But I really did enjoy Puzzleissimo. I hate the link times, or the teleportation times. But when I did that by myself the very first time, it was like, okay, this is a cool puzzle because it really made you think outside the box. And there's a lot of story behind that too. I mean, you can go into detail about why they did that. But if people are still wondering why so many puzzles go like that, but
I think description about
Lean forward.
moment for me.
Lean towards the mic.
Oh, you might have to
Yeah, here. Yeah.
move up so they can hear you.
So my favorite thing about Abduction is when you first go through the dome, build on the dome, you go through it because not only is it a story beat, but it's also a gameplay beat.
I like that one too.
There would be cat dodge, all of that. It's typically the first world you went to other than Unrest, and it's got all that juxtaposition of the architecture and the mechanical stuff just cutting through it. And all the rides they had, the elevator, for being as a ride.
Yeah, I like that too.
Well, puzzle-wise, I really hated Puzzleissimo with an undying passion.
What's Puzzleissimo?
That's in Murray, the giant sphere. I hated the gauntlet first, and then I hated Puzzleissimo when I thought I couldn't hate the gauntlet. But then I talked to Josh, and Josh showed me the way, and I was like, oh, this is easier than I thought. I love it. But as far as the thing that I love most about the game is at certain points when you're going through the dome in some of the worlds, like Murray is the best example I can think of. There are points where you're coming up to the dome and you see through it and there's nothing there. And it looks like you're jumping off into until you walk through it and you're still on the path, but you're in a different spot where you're in another side of the world. And it's one of the most fascinating and fun that happens in any game. It's really a cool, that whole experience.
I like that one too.
Rand, what didn't you like about the game?
Yeah. We'll get to that one. You guys have any other?
Yeah, well, jumping off of what Lloyd said, I really loved like how spatially everything was set up, such that you're transported from one area to another area through the dome, and kind of trying to mentally map like where the different worlds like fit in together. It was really a fun process to think about and like uncover.
Anyone else? Was that everyone? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
My biggest thing that I like.
Come towards the table.
yeah, we can't hear him.
Being a bit of a graphics nerd, it's not so much like the puzzles and volume that I got into. It's specific scenes or specific vistas where jack and graphics way up and stand in a specific spot and you have an awesome shot of the screen. There's the right cave, the little seating area near the river.
Me too.
Rand, can you repeat that?
Yeah.
Oh, what Dog said, you mean?
Yeah.
And graphically, he's kind of tends toward towards some of the graphic areas in the game, especially some of the vistas that are kind of almost like rewards where you can see a lot, where you pump up your graphics card if you have one, that'll do it. And and you just kind of can bask in it a little bit. Like you mentioned, down by the river or the Rye Cave. There's some few of those that I like. So
Cool.
Okay. Next, picking at random. Can you elaborate on the story of the attempted publisher that fell through, and what sort of content had been planned that you had to cut in the end?
oh man, yeah, you guys go cut right to the heart of it. Right to the,
Hey, Rand, can you move the camera again so we can see you?
you mean, or
Just barely. Yeah, that's
how's that?
good.
Just hold that pose for an hour. Yep.
I am. So it was kind of a weird thing. We obviously, because of the Kickstarter, had a lot of the game done, and so we didn't shrink all that much. We kept it at kind of a large size, and we knew we had some fallback, but we were hoping to add a few of these elements in, and we needed more money to do it. Around to publishers, which, we don't have a lot of luck with publishers. We could have known better, but we have a lot of the game done. We can go and play it. So we flew down, we take the game, we play the game in front of people, and a lot of the people lower down at this one particular publisher loved it. They said, "This is great. We want this. This is awesome. We're going to do this." Yeah. It was, and this happens a lot, I think, the higher ups at the company started not responding to the lower downs, and they kept saying things like, "Well, they're on a holiday," and it's now it's another holiday. And I think they were in another country, so it was like, well, boy, they got a lot of holidays, and we were kind of right up to the end before it kind of was becoming apparent, because we're probably a little dense, that it just wasn't going to happen. And it was unfortunate at the time. We looked at it afterwards as a really good thing. It caused us to do some editing. If you don't edit a book, you guys know what happens. It's not very readable. But it also, there was a couple chunks of things that would have been fun to have in the game, or to be able to polish certain elements a little more. And you guys, if you played it, you kind of probably see some of those. I'll give you an example of some stuff that was cut. Captar had some other areas in it that were visually, I think, going to be pretty stunning, and a kind of a cool puzzle associated with it. But it was easy to cut. We didn't need it. There was plenty of gameplay, and it was already. We put a lot of gameplay in for a fairly small budget and for a small team. So I kept thinking, this is more than big, and the art director Eric kept saying, "Oh man, we got plenty of stuff here. We should be careful." So anyway, that's one example that was cut. That puzzle in Captar in particular, I think we all loved. It was really good, and that puzzle is going to find its way into something we do in the future, because it had such a cool element to it. I think it would have been good. I think one of the things to spin off into, one of the things that I think wasn't done as have been, and that's the control panels, the villain control panels. I love how they work. I love the blobs. I love all of that. Originally, it was going to be a real training exercise to go through those panels, learn the digits, learn the elements of how that numbering system worked, and learn that they both could be as individual digits and as combined digits, until at the very end, you were going to have to put all that together into this massive puzzle that you people should be very happy got cut, because I'm not sure it worked. It would have worked as well as we thought it did on paper. So, but what it did was leave a little bit of a hole at the end of those control panels that I'm sure you guys have seen. It's like you go through all the controls and you feel like you've learned it, but there isn't really big thing at the end. There is the lift with all the pods. You kind of have to know what you're doing. But even that, we decided we needed some hints and some techniques for getting through that. So, yeah. There you go.
Okay. I'm going to combine a couple of questions, and I know you can't be specific about this, but how have sales been, in your view? Has it been a commercial success? Is it successful enough to keep Cyan going to a next project? And if you can, how does GOG sales versus Steam sales sort of compare? Like these.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so two parts. As you can tell, it's been enough to keep Cyan going. So yes, it has been enough to keep Cyan going. Which you've heard me say before. Tony and I joke about the fact that sometimes we feel like we're in the employment business, which is fine. I don't think we're expecting to make some huge profit on every project as long as we can keep going and keep trying a little bigger. So to that point, Abduction sales have not been quite what we had hoped for to keep us going, which is good.
And just to add to that, it keeps us going, and now we're going to be coming out on the PS4. Just another SKU that will help us. So all that will keep us going. So
yeah. And again, I think we look at Abduction in some ways like Myst, where it's a slower burn as it goes. Like, I don't see anything that dates us from an indie kind of adventure game that makes things slow down. So I'm hoping that over time, and especially even with the dollar market, that we just kind of continue to sell the product. So, and it's been okay. I mean, from an indie standpoint, we've done kind of midlife. We haven't sold as much as the big dogs like Firewatch or The Witness, but we've done better than some of the ones lower down the ladder. So, but hopefully, things keep going. It's work. It'd be nice if we could get raised.
You okay there, Ryan?
Yeah.
Okay. There are a lot of stories in Abduction that don't get told or don't get completely detailed. Are there any plans for supplemental material like books or comics or that sort of thing?
No, probably not. I think, if anything, those will dribble out in places like this. The answers that we might have that you guys haven't already come up with, which, by the way, I'm amazed at. I mean, I read the threads, and it's like you guys have put together so much stuff that we don't even have to, and that's like. But yes, we're happy to little holes here and there. A few little things that fill in a couple little things.
Got it.
And that's all.
Let's very quickly go through the boilerplate questions we go through every year just to get them out of the way. Myst 3, Myst 4.
More on that soon.
Great.
That's all I'm going to say.
Book of Merim. Actually, there was an interesting follow-up to the Book of Merim question, which was, would you consider a crowdfunding campaign to fund completion of Book of Merim?
Yeah, I think that yes, and we're considering crowdfunding for lots of little things that you guys would probably be interested in. That's one of them. I think that one's harder because if it's a crowdfunding, it may be finding the person to write it too. It's not just the funding; it's the time and finding somebody who could do a good job, and then if that could happen. So, but all those are things we've talked about. So yeah,
okay,
yeah, we don't close doors very often here.
Yep. So we know you're working on Abduction for the PS4. Do you know what comes after Abduction, or at least what comes after that? Do you have any firm plans, or is it all very nebulous?
We're working on new.
in like what project in particular?
Yeah, do you know what you guys are going to work on post-abduction?
Yeah, in fact, those guys know what they're working on already. So, it's, I mean, we're pretty small and there's a lot of room for wiggle, but like the art team, Blake and Joe are already working on something new. And I'll at least tell you this, it's not, at least the current stuff they're working on is not mist-related or abduction-related. It's a whole new, IP as well that I think we're pretty excited about. So with all that said, we'll see what happens, whether that trend continues, but
Yep.
Abduction alive is we can move on to something like that, and
Yep.
those are kind of fun. Actually, I will tell you one more thing about that. We had some big meetings about this next project in particular, and what we decided is that one of the features of this next new project is that we are going to reveal almost nothing about it until it ships. No, there will be no. I mean, honestly, we've even thought about the fact that, if we did a Kickstarter for this next thing, and we need additional funding, and we want to do a Kickstarter, it's just we're gonna make essentially a video that goes, we're not gonna tell you what this is. Now, you can trust us now. We got the last one for you Kickstarter people. You're gonna have to trust us on this one because it's gonna come at you with nothing when you sit down to play it. And we really liked that idea.
You might get logo. That's probably it. So,
yeah, but I should say this, just so it doesn't seem like we're jerks. One of the reasons we thought that was a good idea is because this next title lends itself really, really well to that. You don't want to know anything about it when you play it. So that's why that whole thing came up. It works really well that way.
Yep. During the Kickstarter, there were 3 character concepts that you showed. Someone was asking what happened to those characters. Were 2 of them Farley and CW, and what happened to the 3rd one with the aviator goggles?
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
With anything Kickstarter related, we kind of had to just ask concept artists just to kind of come up with ideas. And so while we might have used them in the Kickstarter campaign, it was something that, especially as we turned into, hey, we're going to do live action characters, things just got, so Farley's character kind of became the all-encompassing person instead of having two. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that, Rand. I mean, your brother took on the role of CW, so the CW character changed a little bit.
I mean, those were concept art, and actually, I think they served their purpose because even Farley, those were 2 kind of concept art pieces of Farley, and they were made to represent what we kind of thought her personality was. He's kind of like strong and an exploring, a person who explores and wasn't afraid to go into new areas. And so some of that kind of came across in the one image that we didn't use, but we used the other one to kind of portray her in the game for what was going on. I mean, I think we drew from both, but mainly had to settle on one because we just saw her a brief period of time. We totally picture her as the other one as well, where she's like, yeah, I'm heading out.
Got it. Speaking of the live-action video, the Kickstarter campaign stated that both Rand and Robin were going to have acting roles, but Rand doesn't appear any more than other Cyan employees. Was there a bigger role planned for him?
Well, you guys know how much I love to act.
Yep.
So, I'm actually in there.
Well, yeah. I mean,
yeah, we'll just leave it at that. I'm in there.
Yeah.
Guys, you guys
Some
found
stuff.
Yeah, but is that it? Are you in there in an acting role, or are you just?
kind of.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, let's say kind of. That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
Go play it again. See if you can find me.
Following up on that, not a question we had listed, but having now done live action again after doing the CG characters, do you think you would continue doing live action, or would you go back to fully CG characters? Or would it depend on the game?
I think it depends on the project, personally.
Yeah,
But that's me. Yeah.
I don't think we're locked in either way. We're comfortable if it works, and so much of it is how it fits with the project.
Yep. Jumping over to some missed questions. Drew, sitting next to me, would really like to know, during Mist 5, how did you make the sound effect for the piranha chicken bird?
I don't remember.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't remember that one. That's a Tim Larkin question. I don't know. That guy is like crazy good at what he does.
Yep.
So there's no telling about the sound. He hikes off into the wilderness sometimes with a recorder, so you probably found one of those creatures.
Do you think you'll ever go back to another Uru-style game, another online multiplayer?
Looking at Rand.
Yeah, I still think Uru, as you guys know, I'm sure, I still think it's amazing. I am so proud of what it pulled off. I'm, disappointed it didn't happen. But wow, I still think it was amazing. Now, whether I've got to pull that off again in some other kind of way, I don't know. We'll just see. Right now, it's not on the. We got a lot of projects on our list, and we're seeing which ones bubble to the top, and that's definitely not one on this kind of list right now. It's just too much for us to bite off.
Yep. Let's go back to one that the rest of the team looks a little bored. So, another group question. What gameplay possibilities do you think virtual reality opens up, and what excites you about virtual reality?
Good one for the team.
It's a good one for Joe. He lives there most of the time.
Joe and Anna should answer this one.
My second favorite thing about Abduction is that it's in virtual reality, because I just not on that. I can't look at every game that comes out every week and gotta see what's new in VR.
Come towards the.
Can you come closer?
Yeah, come closer.
Always new.
Closer.
So there's always new, hardware coming in, and there's nothing really established yet. So there's just so many people throwing things at the dartboard right now, and some of them are just so brilliant. I'm super excited for that movie, Ready Player One. I think a lot of people at this office are. So it's pretty accurate, I think. What kind of possibilities does it open up? That's that's a tough question. I mean, generally, I think it's emergent. Although there's also big gameplay opportunities with it too. As we move forward, I think more and more as we figure it out too ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everybody else? What do you guys like playing in VR? Anybody like anything in particular?
I really like the Wave VR because it's it's an audio-visual experience that you do with other people, and I think that's a really neat part about VR, is that you can express your identity in a different way and meet people and interact with people differently. VR has been considered very isolating because it's only one person, but when you bring in the social aspect of meeting multiple people. I think.
Anyone else?
Dirt rally. Off-road racing, junky old cars. VR, it's pretty good.
Dog likes, racing cars in VR. Yeah, I think that the exciting part for us is that there's so much unexplored territory. It feels like helping define pieces of this, or we can. I mean, as we move forward. And even while we were putting interfaces on Abduction, we're realizing, oh, let's look what other people do, but oh, wow, we do this, it'll work better. And some of our updates that are coming out at some point in the future, you'll see some of those, where we're kind of cleaning up our interface a bit and making things a little bit better. Some of that feels clunky as we're learning, and you guys, obviously, there's a lot of confusion right now, but there's also a lot of elegance that I'm starting to put into this stuff. So, and with all that said, that list of all those games that we kind of have on our burner, they're definitely VR oriented, and they run the gamut from very little interaction that's evident to lots of interaction, and they run from narrative based to more achievement based. And so all of those are, we're seeing which of those bubble up, and it's awesome. We love it. And focusing on VR doesn't mean we leave the PC stuff behind, but it kind of flip the Abduction model a little bit and say, instead of focusing on PC and do a VR version as well, let's focus on VR and make sure we do a PC version as well, or PS4 version, depending on how it works. So I think that's how a lot of us feel.
No, not really. Yeah, just that we're looking at all the different. I mean, we're looking at all kinds of different VR titles currently, and like Grant said, we have. It's going to be a really exciting time.
Ryan, right now, you don't know this, but you're actually seeing him in a VR, one of our VR World Cat play. There's actually a VR cat that comes up. You can't see his legs, but the cat is actually like walking around his legs right now. The VR cat. Basically, living Ready Player One, except it's like with pets.
They have that actually in VR now. You can do sets, right? VR.
Oh my god. That's awesome. I've insulted Ryan.
We've lost Ryan, yes. He logged out. But presumably on the VR front, what exactly...
Okay, now I can hear you again. There he is.
What are your cat's thoughts on VR?
Needs more mice.
Presumably on the VR front, what exactly is the image at the end of the Art of Cyan book?
Obviously, we're trying different things, and I mean, to be totally honest, that we know that at some point we want to do a Myst VR game. We're still not sure whether a reboot, and we don't know what that means, and we don't know when we'll do it. But we had some time where the artists rolled off of Abduction, and we wanted to try some stuff. And so that was kind of some of the stuff that you guys came up with in like a week, I think, you guys put that together.
It was like a week and a half, basically. It was a week and a half test to see what we could potentially do there.
And some of it was for us to learn what worked, what didn't, how far things could go. So it's kind of fun to have the image, and it's a nice little tease. But
and we have a larger image too at some point that we might release. Because that was.
We learned from it. We learned what we liked about it and what we didn't like about it, and also what we could do in a week and a half as well. But yeah, nothing right now. But yeah, as you all know, we've got to go there at some point.
Did the Nerf Dart ever fall from the ceiling?
I think it's still there.
Still many. I'm gonna go look.
Still there.
Still there. I don't. It's got to be some kind of weird permanent thing now. I don't know. So that if whoever licked that one before they shot it has got some weird spin.
Okay, back to Abduction. Given that the intro hologram includes a Dunny greeting, is it confirmed in universe that a Dunny was taken to Hunrath, or was it a Mist fan that was taken instead?
That's pretty funny. I saw that. I saw this question that made me crack up. We were just talking about how we could definitely merge these worlds together, and that's always a fun idea. But we never meant. Thought it was a fun nod to the Dunny universe. That's all. It was never meant to be anything more than that. So yeah.
Regarding the ending, this is a long question. In the end, do the trees bring them to a world that's some sort of tree hub where all the matured trees eventually return and where other species that have already gone through the process already reside? Or do the trees bring them to a world that's simply well suited to those 4 specific species?
Yeah, so we have a lot of this kind of nailed down. I'm just going to try and remember it. Rawa knows this stuff pretty well, and I think we've got notes on it. But high level, when the trees reach fruition, when and if, as you know, they reach fruition, it kind of implies in a natural process that inhabitants of the 4 worlds or 4 spheres have managed to survive and not destroy themselves. And so at that point, they are moved to the diaspora, kind of this world that works for all 4 species. The species that are brought together all have similar atmospheric and nutritional and biological requisites. So it takes them all to a world that kind of satisfies all that, and the dome goes away, and they can live happily ever after. So don't see there is what comes afterwards, which is the tree itself. Mother tree basically sends out another seed that grows another tree on another planet that then will send out and gather more species. So it's kind of a
Starts the process.
Replicating. It just goes in a continual cycle. Various kinds of seeds. I think you guys have probably seen the document that has a lot of different seeds, types of seeds on it. That was at some point we were discussing, oh my goodness, there's lots of different seeds that can fall here. And some of those are documented, but others are left part of the bigger cycle that we never explained.
I mean, I think that ties into a question that I saw on the list that would we ever do an Abduction 2? And I think we've had our own debates internally about because you don't want to repeat the same story, and what do you do, next? So. Abduction 2 is not on the list of things right now. Not that it would never be, right, Rand?
Yeah. I think there's plenty of story there. You guys know we love building story on both ends of what we do. So you get a little window into the world, and so it allows itself for some other pathways through there. Of course, Abduction has got plenty of those, but I think we enjoyed Abduction being that fresh sheet of paper so much, and we enjoyed. Honestly, it's fun watching people being they don't know anything about. I mean, I love doing that, and so it's kind of nice moving on to another one of those. We'd like to surprise you guys.
I'm trying to potentially paraphrase this one. Entry Canyon was presumably named such when they started using it as a controlled entry point for newcomers. When the player arrives, there's no sign of any other displacement spheres preceding the one they arrived in. Is the player the only person who's actually arrived in Entry Canyon, or is their displacement sphere coincidentally big enough to have eclipsed all the other spheres that came before them?
I think in our mind, and there's some artistic license here, but in our mind, what started happening in Hunrath was when the tree would drop a seed that they knew was going out to fetch another person, they would stop there as well, and they would always move the new ones over to that same place. They would come in there was new spots that used to come in kind of at random spaces, wherever the other seed was, the seed pair was, and that's why there's large chunks in various places. But once they realized what was happening, they would move the other pair, the seed pair, over to that same entry canyon so they could kind of know where in and out at. That makes sense?
Yeah, but
and some artistic license taken that, yeah, there would be other eclipses, but, we use the player right up first, like 5 different small,
there are a series of these questions, not all by the same person, but all related. When someone is abducted by a collector seed, what is left behind? Is there a big cracked hunk of sandstone sitting in a campground by a lake somewhere? And if so, have any of these pieces attracted the attention of back on Earth?
Yeah. Essentially, what's left behind. That's why you come across those weird things on Earth sometimes. Those misplaced things sometimes. That's how our front arch here at Cyan came to be. I mean, given the nature of how there isn't anything that's really transported, it's all about swapping. Everything is about swapping. Yes.
On that note, has anyone tried carrying a collector seed with them in the hopes that it would take them back to Earth when it swapped someone else?
Oh, sure. They tried that, and they're now in the graveyard. That doesn't work. It's a good idea, but I don't know. Maybe it did work. Yeah, maybe it did. If you got the pair. Yeah, I don't. It's the same problem. There's no, even if it worked, there's no way for. It's kind of like death. There's no way to communicate with that person then and find out. Well, did it work or not work?
Yeah, and then you got the time thing there too, Rand. Right? So. Right. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't think that we know of anyone on Earth that has said that they've come from Hunrath.
That's right. Never run across those people.
Yeah.
They might be in an asylum. When the tree produces a new seed, where do they grow from? Is it from a branch or from a hole in the trunk, or?
It's from a branch. Because originally the way we thought of it is they would actually fall off the branch and roll to some location. And then at first it was this really natural kind of feeling thing that would happen. It's wherever it rolled to would be where the new swap would happen.
What happened to Earth at the end of Abduction, or in Abduction?
Well, that's a good one, and you guys know that at the end there's two possibilities that everybody kind of comes up with. One is that the most obvious, and I think the one that that all of this started with, is that our our life on these planets is a bit tenuous, even though it feels like we've been here forever. There's disaster waiting in the form of big chunks of rock that may hit at some point, or who knows what else. But so the idea that somehow, as part of a natural process, and I really like this idea, the thing that seems most abhorrent to us of being scattered far from our family and friends is the very thing in nature that ensures that species survive. So from a personal basis, that's horrifying to think that that's going to happen. But from a larger, more macro view, it's what would make things work. And so we just kind of elaborated on what nature does on our planet, kind of a larger view of that. Somehow there's another force that does this on a universal scale. So, the question?
What happens to Earth?
Yes. So with all that in mind, it leads us to what we were going at, is that there is some kind of natural disaster. And we like the idea then that even on an individual basis, there were these people might have been in harm's way, or they were on the verge of death, or before they were taken. There was something that snatched them away, even though it's terrible. And CW misses his daughter. It may have been that he was standing in front of a firing squad, or he was about to fall on him, or whatever. But the same thing works for Earth. There were two things there, though. One is Earth won't be there forever, and you can't always go home. There is this weird thing about going home. It's not the same place that you think it is on a micro scale, and we just, again, made that a macro scale as well. So the twist is, you get back there and you're not sure whether it was a natural disaster, which to me works really well, or the fact that he went off in Soria and actually contributed to Earth's destruction somewhat. And we kind of left that vague on purpose. There's a few little hints, and I think if you ask Rawa and I how we planned it, it wasn't that the WMD actually did damage to Earth. It was more of a natural disaster. And I think you see some of the blast marks on the side of the dome. If you look carefully, there's kind of like char marks on there, because we thought it would imply that it was more constrained. But I'm not sure that we really know, to be honest with you. That it's kind of, even in our minds, we like the fact that could have contributed somewhat, but it's a little less of the natural story of how things just kind of come and go. There you go. There you go.
Great.
Long answer.
Great. I have a section in the questions where Riam went on a late night rambling and submitted 70 questions, so we cut that down, but some of them are quite fun, so we will ask one. The Dunny live for a long time, and with humans we start with baby teeth and they fall out and we grow new teeth, but if a human lived as long as a Dunny, they would probably lose all their teeth eventually. Did the Dunny grow more teeth over time? Did they have a third set of teeth? And was there a guild of dentists that helped them practice good dental hygiene?
Wow. That's a pretty deep question.
His questions get worse.
I don't even know. I don't know, Rand. That's a Rawa thing.
I like the idea of growing new teeth. I'm going to say they did. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I recently saw in a translated document that, in fact, they did grow new teeth.
They had master teeth?
Good dentist ever.
I think we'll do one more of Riam's. Did the Dunny have a midlife crisis? Did they have a reckless 250th birthday where they bought a flashy red speedboat to cruise around the lake trying to pick up 100-year-olds half their age?
They had flashy red linking books that they would give to those people.
Back to the real questions. Are there any plans to sell merch again? Plushies, reprints of posters, pewter figurines?
Time. Definitely. Just time and right now I'm in the shipping department, so
I should carry this computer into Ryan's office so you can see the shipping department / tiki bar.
Riam had a question about that too.
he did.
Any news on the TV series?
Well, let's see. We've had a weird year with the TV series. We got some some encouragement. I think my last official statement was, "Hey, we've come farther along than we've ever been, and things are looking good." But I don't understand Hollywood, and we're probably not up as high as we were before. I think some things have slipped down and fallen through, and. So don't hold your breath. Hollywood works in mysterious ways, and we'll just keep trying. We have some different ideas, I think, that we're pursuing. We'll see what happens with those. But yeah, on my meter of like, hey, it's going to happen and not going to happen, I've definitely ticked. And it's not as fast as it was a year ago now, so.
Do you think there's a way to balance the beauty, cerebralness, and deep storylines of Cyan's games with the more fast-paced and competitiveness that a lot of gamers these days expect?
Okay, so here's a real interesting story. Because it revolves around Abduction, actually. You guys will like this story. We've told you that Abduction... we've had the idea for a long time, 10 years, 15 years, something that's been bouncing around here at Cyan. And it's been through various iterations, including a comedic version, really fun and interesting. And there was we have posters, by the way, which you've probably seen hanging around of the various versions. But one of them was what we called kind of, I think we called it something like Halo meets Myst or something like that, because we thought our hands at what people think is a shooter. And it was not, there was interesting twists in there and turns, and it wasn't what people thought at the beginning, and we were going to have fun with it, but we were going to put big guns and let people shoot things and pick up the pace a bit. So yes, we do consider those things, but we also try to stay true to. We feel like the narrative part of what we do is the most important, and I watch my daughters play shooters, and it's kind of like the narrative part is like somebody comes up to give you some information. It's like click, 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 get through. I don't want the information. That's not really part of it. So that way, again, we'd want to do like what we did with that old version of Abduction and make sure you know about it, and the entertainment value may surprise you in the end with how it turns around. But of all those ones that are on the table, none of those right now are shooters in any way. There are some that take a little more activity, but nothing along the shooter route.
Are we going to get a Myst VR exercise game?
Maybe.
Oh, Myst dance game, someone suggests.
Perfect.
Question from the Twitch stream. Was there outside funding for the Abduction PS4 port?
Yes.
Yes. In fact, well, are we allowed to say that?
No, can't say it.
Yeah.
Yes, the answer is yes. Okay. And is it possible that there will be an Xbox port or other ports? Do you have plans for other ports? Let's broaden that.
Yeah, I think everything's possible. We don't want to shut any doors, and we have great connections and contacts with a lot of companies that could lead to things, but nothing firm right now. So.
Rand, you're going to love this question. Seeing how Rand is now in his late 50s, what will become of Cyan when he eventually retires?
Rand can't retire. Rand just can't retire. That's just the way it is.
I joke with my wife that if I retired, I'd go home. I'd do what people do when they retire, like go fiddle in the garage or something, and I'd come in like 2 days later and go, "Oh, I've got a great idea for a game." So yeah, really good people here, and some of what I think the way all of us are looking at this, and you should know this, we really are very flat. It's not like everything comes on high from Rand. We all have input. We put stuff into a big bucket in the middle of the design table from people, close at hand, or artists or programmers, and we don't use it all, but we take it all, and everybody kind of grows in that in all areas. So it makes, I think, all of us less concerned about that. I get to be the guy who just picks things out of the bucket, but not by necessity. It's just by my white hair. We've got plenty of talented people who could fill that role.
Another Twitch question. Are there any plans for localizing voices in Abduction?
At this time?
No.
Okay. Do you have any plans for Linux releases?
No.
Yeah.
No. Not at this time. No plans at this time.
The big
How about that?
The big problem with Linux releases is if and when we release on the Linux platform, it would be for one specific variation of Linux, because there's so many SKUs that it's hard to QA that. So we'd really have to kind of just pick one and say, okay, and I'm not sure how many people that would satisfy, let alone the resources we have to put into that. So much as we'd like to do that, we have to kind of balance it with how many people could take advantage of it as well. But we do have those discussions ongoing as well.
How long has the title Abduction been used, and how long has it been associated with being abducted by seeds?
You mean internally at Cyan? Those early design documents, but it's been a long time with that actual name.
Yeah, at least 10 years with that name. And with the seed part of it, I would say the Kickstarter campaign. So
was it always
2013.
Was it always associated with being abducted in some way?
Yes, always. It was, some of the earlier versions were more blatant. And basically, a pickup truck driving down the road, the man gets abducted with his dog, but I think when we went you'd awaken that to something more natural. Ryan just got abducted, I think. Skewed to something more natural that let us focus on the worlds rather than the actual abduction part, and kept that part a little bit vague.
Oh, okay. I was going to find something that he wouldn't need to hear. What is... It's phrased weirdly, but what is one aspect or world from the game that caused the most internal disagreement among the team?
Oh, well, that's an easy one. The The Russian box.
Mm-hmm.
That was Rawa and I think were there. The Russian box changed a bit over time, but that was something Rawa and I just we stumbled on that and we were like, yeah, we're doing that. And I don't think anyone else on the team, in the big bucket of ideas that goes in the middle of the table, everybody else would have dumped that one out, and I had to pull rank to keep that one in. So that was all me and Rawa's fault if you hated it.
There's lots of grumbling in the crowd.
So I have to tell you though that the conversations that went on regarding that box were, okay, how many digits can we put on there so that people will, if they start messing with it, they got to know we wouldn't just make them try and figure out 19 digits or whatever it was. I forget how many it was. It's 20 digits. So we're going to, how many digits? There's no way they're going to, and then put other lights. And Blake just went crazy on that thing. And the idea was that you would come up to this box and you'd be so discouraged, well, I'm not even going to try this. Let's turn a few knobs and it's well, somewhere the key is somewhere else. And then later on, and you see this, you inadvertently come up and do something with it, and it basically just gets crushed, gets destroyed. And we thought that would be very satisfying to people. I think the final implementation evolved a little bit from, because man, when we destroyed it, we wanted it to just be completely crushed, but we decided we wanted to use it in other ways too. But yeah, that one was definitely controversial.
What inspired you when? Sorry.
Was there any other controversial stuff? Anything else that frequents on? Ryan, do you remember anything else that that we?
I mean, we talked about Soria and puzzles there, but because that was a big thing that kind of came up. It wasn't really a huge disagreement. It was just, I would say the puzzle box was the big one.
I wouldn't call lighting a disagreement, but there was definitely a whole lot of talk about what the best thing would be with lighting. So that was pretty big for us.
Yeah. From our point of view, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. What inspired you when choosing names for past residents of Hunrath? Where did the Hartnell name come from?
Rawa.
Yeah, I think almost names, I think including Hartnell, were based on research Rawa did that was close to missing people or towns and areas that we thought would fit. So I think it was all variations of real things. We love weaving that stuff into real life in some ways. So, yeah.
Right. How much does Cyan pay attention to what's happening in Mist Online?
Dog, how much are we paying attention these days to Mist Online?
You love that game? What? I shut it off.
I think, well, one thing I know that even this week happened is there were some changes to allow for new authentication that would, the griefing that's been occurring. We had to kind of shut that down because we were getting so many
spam accounts and stuff.
Spamming it, coming in and spamming. So that actually wrapped up this week. So that should be implemented soon.
But it's implemented.
That's the texting, the Facebook.
Yep, the Facebook authorization. Yep. Yeah, Mark's not here, so we can't really answer all the questions that were on there about that in particular. But we had a lot of discussion at work about what we could do and what we couldn't do, and this was probably the best. Yeah, the best of all the ways that we could authorize.
Another one for the group. What is your favorite non-Cyan video game?
Sorry, you cut off. Sorry, you cut off.
What is your favorite non-Cyan video game? Did we lose him? We might have lost him.
We got Cyan.
Okay.
We couldn't hear what you said.
Yeah,
It sounded like weird.
there was a glitch for a moment. What is your favorite non-Cyan video game?
Currently?
Oh.
In general.
Go for it.
Was it?
Oh, nothing. I thought you were gonna answer.
No.
I don't have a favorite video game ever. I have favorite video games in every genre. For fighting games, I've been playing Guilty Gear a lot. It looks 2D, but it's 3D, and it's just fascinating how they made it to me. I don't know. I could go on and on, really.
Go ahead. Name a few more.
Yesterday, well, for VR, let's see. I really like Star Trek. Super Hot is really awesome. I just played a mech game yesterday called the Archangel, and like you can use your hands to like punch things, like punch bridges down and everything.
Ooh, that's cool.
For RPGs, like JRPGs, I really love Panzer Dragoon Saga. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna pass it now. So.
Can you tell Joe likes games? Wait.
One of the moments, Firewatch and Insight in my top 3.
Cool. Interesting.
I haven't been playing very many games except Abduction lately.
Yeah.
Anyone else over there?
I've been playing a bunch of the Final Fantasy 15 expansion stuff.
How is that?
It's really good.
Awesome,
The
dude.
expansion is excellent.
The multiplayer stuff too, or okay.
I've been playing Final Fantasy, Rally. What's that last?
A bunch of the people at work are playing PUBG right now.
Oh, there's that.
But my current game that I'm playing is The Long Dart. They just added their story mode, and I actually think it's better than Firewatch. It's pretty good. It's a survival game. It's not even survival horror. It's just survival. But they added it's doing really well. So.
Cool. I like Angry Birds.
You should try this game called Bunch Life.
What's that?
Favorite game. Still number 1.
You are
Not. Okay, never mind.
What are your thoughts on Kickstarter as a funding mechanism for future games? I know you've touched on it earlier, but
It's some really satisfying good parts about it. And we've said these before. It feels like we have, instead of a few executive critiquers, we have 1,000 co-supporters, which is really nice. During the process, that comes in handy. It does toward the end, when you've got all those things to fulfill, as Ryan, the shipping guy, will tell you. It's tough. The database of all those people and mailing stuff out and changes of addresses and damaged goods when we're really to deal in bits and we're having to work with so many atoms that we're not really set up to do. It takes a lot out of us. And then it's hard for us as a company. I think sometimes there's there's inevitably with that large of a group of people who are supporting you. In our case, there's going to be some people who you care, and those voices are loud, even though they may be small. You know, we don't want to disappoint anybody, and so when there's criticisms about how we're handling things and how it's a scam, how we're scamming people, it's like, oh man, that stuff cuts to the bone, because we have worked our butts off for this thing. We poured everything into Abduction, you know, money and otherwise. So for people to go, oh, it's just a Kickstarter scam, even though it's like, you know, one person, it's like, what? Oh, if only you knew.
Mm-hmm.
So those are hard. But overall, I think most people by far are so supportive and even support us heads, keep us from having to get in there and make the arguments, because lots of you guys, our fans, come in and realize what we're doing and that we take this very seriously. So, yeah, I think
Kickstarter
overall we would consider it, although we've learned a lot and might do, you know, some things differently.
Yeah, and the Kickstarter landscape has changed a lot in the years since. A lot of games came out to Kickstarter basically, but never came out. And so, I mean, there's a lot of buyer beware in that landscape now. I think we have potential to do another Kickstarter for multiple things, and we can say, look at our last Kickstarter. Look, we have done this. You know what I mean? So hopefully that will help us in the future against that buyer beware stuff. And you know, there's other crowdsourcing funding companies out there now too, Fig and Indiegogo. So you know, we say Kickstarter, but maybe it would be our own personal crowdfunding. Who knows? We haven't really talked about it much, but we definitely are looking forward to keep on making. For sure.
Is Cyan or are any Cyan employees planning to attend any upcoming conventions or other events that people might be able to go to?
I can say we will be at PAX. That's all I can say at this point. The West.
I had one. Where to go? What inspired the core story elements of Abduction, the end mechanics?
Well, I mean, honestly, the primary inspiration was the very beginning, you know, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, whenever it came into our heads, was why don't we, basically it was the idea of myths being taken and plopped down on a dock in the middle of nowhere. But there's so many abduction stories, you know, oh, people got abducted, they got taken in a ship, whatever, all these alien abductions. Like, well, what might that feel like? What would that be if you got to experience that? And it just kind of spooled into various iterations of that until what you see.
Where to go? Yes. Since we have about 12 minutes left, I want to ask you, what question do you really want us to ask you? What topic would you love to talk about that we haven't encouraged?
Wow, those are always the hardest question for me, because I don't think about what I'd like to be asked. Yeah, I don't know. Religion and politics would be good if you Yeah, I don't know. Anybody else? You had any question? You know, that's always the hardest one. I don't ever know that I've answered that. well.
Yeah, I'm looking through the questions, and I don't see anything that's popping out either.
I know one. There was one in there that was, why was there like a 3-day gap between Luther Roscoe and Hunrath?
Mm-hmm.
And not that I ever wanted anyone to ask me that question, but since it's there, Roscoe was like an informal mayor of the place. He got there and never really formalized things. And it wasn't until Hunrath got there, Moore got things very formal, set up structures, and kind of took it to this next level, that everybody started looking backwards and thinking that Roscoe was kind of the first mayor, the first leader of the place. So those 3 days were, or I think it was 3 days, I don't even remember, but it was, you know, while there was some election being held or something, because that was the first time things got formal. There, boom.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
Ryan, did you find anything?
There's. Hey Rand, they ask, what time does the player arrive in Hunrath in relation to when the battle plan was carried out and everyone was pod? It's like the week, right? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, I can look at the spreadsheet, but it seems like it was, we always thought it was in a week or two happening, because CW started losing hope. He stayed at his station for a long time, for days, before he's like, oh my goodness, I don't know what happened. And he starts losing hope and drifts back to his workplace and kind of sets it up where, you know, he's not expecting good things to happen. So when you arrive, he's like, oh my goodness, it's about time you got back. And he was incredibly happy at that moment. And a lot of what you see there is that setup. He's got the disabler aimed at the entryway right through his gateway, so that it's going to be, any weaponry would be disabled. So he's got it set up. But yeah, I think it was a fairly short time frame.
The other one that is just kind of a general one here, Rand, is what are the greatest achievements and disappointments with Abduction? I think one of the greatest achievements is, like, with the small team that we have, pulling off what is nearly a AAA title. You know, I'm just always amazed about our team size and just the amazing art that we were able to produce. I look at new games that are coming out that have been in production for 4 years with, you know, teams that are about the same size, and I'm going, wow, look at what we produced versus that. You know, I'm just amazed by our team.
I'm amazed by our team. I will echo exactly that. These guys, especially, like, you know, new people like Joe and Blake, who came in, you know, to do artwork and had to be trained and learn stuff. I mean, they came in talented already, obviously, but learning to become fluent with the Unreal Engine and all the things that we had to learn and produce at the same time. It's like, it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I would say that too. Like, everyone must know, or at least the fans should know, that this was our first Unreal Engine game. We were learning the engine while we were producing the artwork. So, I mean, even looking back at our code now, some of the programmers are like, oh man, I did that, you know, and then we've of course fixed it. But it was pretty amazing that we were learning the engine while producing a game. So.
Yes.
Like, I also want to add that I love the communication that we have in the office. Like you were saying earlier, how things are really flat, you know, like people will be very like attentive and they'll just listen really well to, you know, any ideas you have and really like consider those things. So I think that really helped our, I guess, workflow.
Yeah. I hope you guys who played Abduction, well, you get the advantage of us kind of pitching it, and you guys are such supporters. It's awesome. I mean, you're the true fans. In a lot of ways, we do this for ourselves, but for you guys too. We're biting off a lot because we like this. We like this idea, and we like the way it feels and the way these games play, and we feel like we, got a little history of this, and we'd love to keep it up. So thanks for your support with all that as well. But yeah, we're the more games that come out, to Ryan's point, the more games that come out that are kind of indie titles, because we definitely consider ourselves indie. We continue to be proud at at the size and scope that we were able to pull off. So yeah, now we got to keep it together and move all this, what is really nice experience into what's next, so that it hopefully pays off in some new ways, which would be kind of fun.
Wow, I feel like that should have been the last question, but we have time, because that was a great, very very simple question. I know you sent us several copies, but have you looked into digitally distributing Hexile again?
I know I've mentioned it to Tony. We're dealing with stuff like that. Again, that could be one of those coming soon, or we'll talk about that later. I don't know.
Yeah, as proud as we are of everything we've done, we're always trying to get the rights back, but a lot of it involves publishers that are big and we're small, so it's just jumping up and down and getting people's attention sometimes. It takes a long time, and then, maybe it works. So we break from what? And 3 and 4. Yeah, 4 and 5. 3 and 4.
3, 4, 5.
3, 4, 5. Yeah, all those. So
2 more for you, and then I think we'll call it a day. How did the phrase "perhaps the ending has not yet been written" come about and become a trademark of the series?
It's just one of those lines. When we wrote the first lines in Mist, that just felt like exactly when we were talking about books and worlds and open-ended things. It just felt like it fit well there. We never expected that to keep going, but it's been one of the most appropriate things for our company, I think, that we could have latched on to. Just feels like we never write the ending, which is awesome.
I think we will end with one of Riam's questions. If you jumped off the cliff in Kaptar, would you end up in a portal-like, never-ending loop of infinite falling, and could this be used to generate infinite power?
Let me ask you about that, because they've done it.
It has happened. You should try it in VR. It's the best in VR.
Infinite vomiting.
There have been many base jumping attempts on Kaptar by the QA team and others. And it's pretty crazy.
Oh, nice. Kaptar base jumping.
Yeah.
I heart base jumping on Kaptar.
Kaptar base jumping team for coming soon to Science.
Okay, well, I think that's all the time we have, but as always, I want to thank you guys, especially everyone else who isn't Rand and Ryan, for coming in. We do love to show off that there's more than just the two of them as Cyan. Much as we love the two of them.
Yes.
Then yeah, thank you, and let's have a round of applause for Cyan. And make sure to tell the rest of the team to not go on vacation the first weekend in August next year.
Done.
We'll have to find out where. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Or if they're going on
Go ahead.
vacation, come to Mysterium. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, thank you, and
Good event.
Good
see ya.
event.
See you guys.
Bye.
That was fun. We now have a half-hour break, and then we will have half-hour break, and then we will have the Starry Expanse team showing off the Starry Expanse team.